Welcome back to Sunset Hour with Dani Mortel. I saw a comment on the previous episode, and if you notice, I took a gap week last week. And again, I saw a comment on the previous episode, and it says, "Next episode, please." And not gonna lie, that honestly pushed me to keep on trying to record episode number 4, which is this one right here. And if you are part of our broadcast channel called Sunset Hour on Instagram, you would know, and I was very vulnerable about it, that I couldn't find my words the past how many days. And I've tried to record this episode again and again, and I've actually tried to edit, but I just wasn't happy with it. But seeing that comment on Spotify, just gave me a little nudge. And sometimes that's all we need to try again and to not give up. How are you today? How are you today? Let's get straight into it. Let's go straight into it. I've shared many times on my socials that I actually play football every weekend for fun or competitively. But on top of that, not professionally. And on top of that, I also get trained by a coach every week or once a week. Now, football is a sport that I actually grew up with. I started playing it at age 7. And I remember the first ever time I played it, or played the game at least, because when you're 7 years old, you really don't know what sport is. Even if the coach tries to explain it technically to you, you're like, well, I just want to have fun. And have fun I did. So I remember it. It was in our village park. Not even a proper football field, okay? And the coach just told us that the goal of the game is to put the ball on the other side of the field, or in our case, of the park surrounded by hills, without using your hands. So basically, it's basically that. Just the goal is you're going to bring this ball to the other side of the field. Let's just call it the field, without using your hands. And we were divided into 2 teams, or actually, I don't think we were divided into 2 teams at all. It was okay, whatever. Just that's the goal. If you're coming from here, go to the other side. If you're coming from here, bring the ball to the other side. And I was a competitive kid. I just remember I wanted to do it. I got the ball. I figured I couldn't use my hands, of course, so I would need to use my feet, right? So I would push the ball with my feet, and then I don't know, next thing I know, I was on the other side, other end of the field. I did it. I had done what needed to be done. And I did it again and again and again and again until I learned the skills. Until I got trained for the technical abilities that you need for the sport, which is football. But I remember so crisply how happy that made me feel, having been or being able to accomplish that simple task, which is to bring the ball to the other side of the field. Not even into a goal. I think it was bring the ball to the other side of the field, and then the next step is to bring the ball into a space, right? A space between 2 cones, or maybe not even cones, but like one shoe and another shoe. But knowing our coach, he probably had cones, but we didn't have a goal yet whatsoever. It was nothing rigid, right? It was supposed to be, I think what his goal for that day was just to make us, or to get us have fun with the ball. And we did exactly that. I was so happy to, do it again and again. I just kept going and going. So all that to say, I played football through high school too. So I played in grade school. I was the only girl most of the time, because it's usually the boys who would play the sport. And I played throughout high school. Thankfully, we had a girls' team in high school. And I had an option to join the drama club or the school paper or the school choir, but I wanted to be in the school's varsity team. College was a completely different story. I no longer pursued football because I honestly got so intimidated by the UP women's football team. Shout out to you. But to put it simply, I chose another path. I chose doing commercials, TV commercials. And I knew that being a student athlete was going to be hard on me physically, right? And at the time, I was already doing, TV commercials. And sad to say, I was brainwashed into thinking that my skin had to be more fair if I wanted to keep booking commercials. So that was a choice that I had to make in college. And now that I'm 28 years old and I'm a wife, football is something that I enjoy on the weekends. Yes, but it's also something that pushes me to be better on and off the field. Now, I've never trained this hard, even as a young girl. Never. And maybe that's because I thought this sport wouldn't be able to give me a future. But today, as I speak, I know of and look up to so many women footballers in the country and internationally. And they are paving the way for young girls whose parents or guardians are also probably thinking or wondering if this sport ever has a future for them. I have not played professionally ever, but with how things are going today, the support that women's football is getting, from the increase in media coverage to the increase of female coaches and referees to a lot of steps in inclusivity, at least in the international stage. I would like to say that there's more work to be done here locally in the Philippines. Like allowing players to take leaves due to menstrual health. There's, steps in increasing maternity leaves, increasing the number of weeks for maternity leaves, adoption leaves, family leaves. Globally, this is already happening, or internationally, this is already happening, etc. But again, as I mentioned earlier, there's still so much work to do, especially in the local football landscape. But I am hopeful that young girls who get the spark that they have on the field, like I did when I was 7 years old, won't have to quit it so early or at all just because they think they might not go anywhere with it. All that to say, never give up on your sport. Studies already show that there are so many benefits to playing a sport. Overall health, mentality, discipline, leadership skills, being goal-oriented, being a team player, etc. But to put it simply for you, I train for nothing because I want to be ready for anything. I train for nothing because I want to be ready for anything. And you know what? It's never too late to start. Again, I'm 28 and I just started training more seriously last year. And I can already see the improvement in terms of skill, endurance, stamina, and most importantly, mentality. And I get to bring all of those off the field for work, for pursuing my other passions, for never giving up too easily on anything like this podcast. I used to wake up in the morning and wing the day. Do you know what I mean when I say wing the day? Instead of win the day, you're winging the day. That was me, right? But when you have an athlete mentality, really, that changes. I have a newfound respect for athletes who show up even when they don't want to or even when they can't. And I remember this story from the World Cup in 2023. So Spain's captain, her name is Olga Carmona. She scored her country's winning goal at the World Cup final. And everything was great. Of course, they celebrated. Imagine this. After winning the World Cup, you're told that your father had passed. She was in that situation where, wow, something great has just happened to me, but it's also the worst day of my life. And her family and friends actually decided not to tell her the news because they wanted her to focus on the final, and focus she did. Hello, winning goal, right? But yeah, this is just an example of how inspiring athletes are. And if we all just, turned on that athlete mentality, we can really go places. So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is, know you're never too old for anything, to pursue anything. Yes, you can do hard things. And yes, you should absolutely start training for nothing. And that's it for me, you guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here and spending time with me. Always remember, it's gonna be good. Bye. Happy Women's Month.